The house was never supposed to be there. It wasn't on any map. It wasn't listed in any records. Yet, when Adam and Lisa followed the old dirt road through the thick fog, there it stood, looming, unnatural, and waiting. Lisa gripped Adam's arm. "This isn't possible," she whispered. "The GPS said there was nothing out here." Adam swallowed hard, staring at the house's grotesque architecture. The Victorian-style structure twisted as if it had been stretched by unseen hands. The wood was dark and wet, as though it had been bleeding from within. The windows weren't just broken, they were gaping holes, mouths screaming into the wind. They had been searching for an abandoned house rumored to be haunted, drawn in by online urban legends. Some said it had been built by a recluse who vanished without a trace. Others swore it never existed in the same place twice. But none of them prepared Adam and Lisa for what they were seeing now. A chill crawled up Adam's spine. "Should we go in?" Lisa hesitated, but the pull of the unknown was stronger. "We've come this far." The front door swung open before they even touched it. Inside, the air was thick with decay. The floorboards groaned beneath their weight. The walls were covered in faded wallpaper, peeling away like dead skin, revealing something beneath, something pulsing. Lisa gasped. "Did you hear that?" A whisper. Soft. Almost a sigh. Then, from the shadows of the grand staircase, something moved. Adam reached for Lisa's hand, squeezing it. "We're not alone." Above them, unseen footsteps echoed. The house was waking up. And it had been waiting for them. The whispering grew louder. It wasn't just one voice, it was many, overlapping, tangled in a chorus of things unseen. Lisa shuddered, her fingers tightening around Adam's wrist. "We need to leave," she whispered. Adam's heart pounded against his ribs. He wanted to agree, to turn back and pretend they never saw this place. But something about the house wouldn't let him go. It was as if the walls themselves had latched onto his mind, pulling him deeper. The staircase ahead of them stretched into the darkness. A single, flickering chandelier swayed overhead, though there was no breeze. The air smelled of damp rot and something metallic, something too much like blood. Lisa stepped closer to the wall, her breath hitching. "Adam, look." Beneath the torn wallpaper, something pulsed. It wasn't plaster or wood. It was raw, red, and alive. Adam recoiled. "What the hell is that?" The whispering intensified. It slithered into their ears, threading through their thoughts like invasive vines. The words were indistinct, but one message was clear. "Stay." Suddenly, footsteps pounded above them. Heavy. Rushed. Coming toward the stairs. Lisa grabbed Adam's arm. "Run." They bolted back toward the front door, but the hallway stretched longer, the exit retreating into darkness. The house was shifting, reshaping itself around them. A guttural laugh echoed from above. Not human. Not sane. Adam grabbed Lisa's hand. "We have to go upstairs." She stared at him, horrified. "Up there? Are you insane?" The footsteps grew closer. The walls trembled. The house was sealing them in. "We don't have a choice," Adam breathed. Then, from the top of the stairs, something whispered their names. And the house exhaled. Adam and Lisa had no time to think, only to move. They sprinted up the stairs, their feet hammering against the warped wooden steps. The air grew heavier with each step, as if something unseen pressed against their chests, trying to hold them back. At the top of the stairs, the hallway stretched in both directions, lined with doors. The whispering voices coiled through the air, murmuring their names over and over. Lisa's grip tightened on Adam's wrist. "Which way?" Adam turned toward the nearest door and threw it open. Inside was a bedroom, perfectly preserved, as if waiting for its owner to return. A single oil lamp flickered on the nightstand. The walls were covered in faded floral wallpaper, but as Lisa stepped inside, she noticed something wrong. The flowers in the wallpaper were bleeding. Dark, red stains seeped from the petals, spreading like ink on wet paper. Then the door slammed shut behind them. Adam spun around and yanked at the knob, but it didn't budge. "No." No, no, no. Lisa backed away from the walls. Adam, I don't think we're alone. The air in the room felt thick, charged with something unnatural. The bed was made, but the blankets bulged in odd places, as if something was underneath them. Lisa's breath came in short gasps. Adam, we have to get out. Then the whispering stopped. For a brief, terrible moment, there was only silence. Then, thump. The sound came from beneath the bed. Adam's blood ran cold. He reached for Lisa, but before he could pull her back, the blankets began to move. Something was crawling out. The sheets slithered aside, revealing a figure beneath. A body. It was a woman. Her skin was stretched too tight over her bones, her eyes hollow and black. Her lips curled into a grotesque smile as she whispered, "You shouldn't have come." The walls trembled. The lamp flickered violently. Then the woman lunged. Lisa screamed as the room collapsed into darkness. Lisa's scream echoed through the room, swallowed by the suffocating darkness. Adam scrambled backward, dragging her with him as the skeletal woman lunged. But she never reached them. Instead, the air rippled, as if the house itself had drawn a breath. The figure twitched, then vanished, dissolving into the shadows. For a brief, terrifying moment, there was silence. Then, the whispering began again, closer this time. More urgent. Lisa gasped, gripping Adam's arm. What just happened? I don't know, he whispered. But we need to get out of here. Adam reached for the door again. This time, the knob turned. The door creaked open, revealing the hallway. But it wasn't the same. The corridor had changed. The walls were no longer faded and peeling. Now, they gleamed with fresh paint, the floral wallpaper intact, but wrong. The flowers no longer bled. Instead, they moved. Their petals twisted, rearranging into grotesque, shifting faces. Lisa shuddered. This place, it's alive. A slow creak echoed from behind them. They turned. The bed, once empty, was now occupied. A woman sat there, facing away, her long, dark hair draped over her shoulders. Her hands rested in her lap, fingers too long and twisted at unnatural angles. Lisa barely dared to breathe. The woman tilted her head. Not toward them, but toward the mirror on the dresser. Adam followed her gaze, and froze. In the mirror, the woman's face was visible. But it wasn't her own. It was Lisa's. Lisa's reflection blinked, then smiled, a wicked, knowing grin that Lisa herself had not made. The whispering surged, wrapping around them in a ghostly embrace. Adam grabbed Lisa's hand. Run. They bolted from the room, sprinting down the warped corridor as the house shifted around them. The doors on either side rattled violently, their handles twisting, unseen hands clawing to get out. Ahead, a single door stood open. Without thinking, they dove inside, and the door slammed shut behind them. Panting, Lisa turned to Adam. Where are we? The room was unlike any other they'd seen. It was circular, the walls covered in torn, rotting fabric. The air smelled of decay. And in the center of the room, there was a chair. A single, wooden chair, facing a massive, floor-to-ceiling mirror. Lisa's voice was barely a whisper. This wasn't here before. Adam stepped forward, his eyes fixed on the mirror. But there was no reflection. Only darkness. Then, in that inky void, something blinked. A pair of eyes, watching them. The whispering stopped. A voice, low and rasping, spoke from the mirror. You're not supposed to be here. Lisa's breath hitched as the eyes in the mirror bore into her. They weren't hers. They weren't Adam's. They belonged to something else. The whispering had ceased. Instead, the house held its breath, waiting. Adam took a step closer to the mirror. Who are you? The voice chuckled, a dry, brittle sound like wind through dead leaves. Who am I? The voice rasped. I am the house. I am the dream. I am the blood in its walls. Lisa shuddered. This is insane. Adam turned to her. We have to get out of here. Now. But the door was gone. Where it had been, there was only more of the rotting fabric-covered walls, pulsing as if the house itself had veins. Lisa swallowed hard. "We're trapped." The voice sighed from the mirror, amused. "Of course you are." The chair in the middle of the room creaked, shifting slightly, as if someone had just sat down. But the seat was empty. Adam clenched his fists. "What do you want?" The voice laughed. The mirror rippled like disturbed water, and suddenly, images flashed across its surface. A girl, young, with long black hair, standing in this very room, staring into the mirror. A man in a doctor's coat, whispering something to her as he placed his hands on her shoulders. A scalpel. A struggle. Blood. So much blood. Lisa's voice was barely a whisper. "This house, it's showing us something." The girl in the mirror turned. Her eyes were hollow, her mouth sewn shut with thick black stitches. The whispers returned, swirling around them like a rising wind. "She never left," the voice said. "And neither will you." The mirror shattered. The room plunged into darkness. And then, Lisa felt hands grab her shoulders. She screamed. Lisa thrashed, trying to tear away from the icy grip on her shoulders, but the hands wouldn't let go. Adam lunged toward her, grabbing her arm. "Lisa, there's nothing there." But she felt it, bony fingers pressing into her skin, nails like needles digging into her flesh. The room was pitch dark, yet the whispers grew louder. Then, a sound. A slow, wet dripping. Adam turned toward the sound, and his breath hitched. The walls were bleeding. Thick, black-red liquid oozed from the seams of the decayed wallpaper, running in slow rivulets toward the floor. The stench of iron filled the air. Lisa forced herself to turn. The mirror was gone, but in its place, the girl from the reflection now stood before them. Her stitched mouth trembled. Her hollow eyes wept blood. She raised a hand, pointing behind them. Adam turned first. His face drained of color. Lisa followed his gaze, and choked on a scream. The walls were no longer just bleeding. They were moving. Shapes pushed against them, twisting, writhing, straining to break through. Hands. Faces. Mouths that moved in silent agony. Lisa recognized some, faces from the portraits downstairs, now screaming behind the walls. Her stomach lurched. "Oh my God!" Adam stumbled back. "This house, it's alive." The girl in front of them shook her head. She raised her bloody hands, pressing them to her stitched mouth. Lisa's breath caught. "She's trying to tell us something." The whispers intensified, surrounding them in an unholy symphony of pain. The girl's fingers twitched, then ripped the stitches apart. A voice, no, a scream, filled the room. "Run!" The walls burst open. The hands and faces tore free, grasping, reaching, hungry. Adam grabbed Lisa's wrist. "Go! Now!" They ran. The floor quaked beneath them, the walls collapsed inward, the house itself trying to consume them. Behind them, the girl's screams echoed. And the last thing Lisa saw before the door slammed shut was the girl being pulled into the blood-stained walls, vanishing forever. The house roared. And then, silence. Lisa and Adam stood gasping outside, their backs pressed against the crumbling wooden porch. The house had gone still. The storm still raged above, but inside, dead silence. Adam wiped his face, his hands trembling. "We should leave. Now." Lisa turned back toward the house. The front door had vanished. Where it once stood was now just an unbroken wall, as if the entrance had never existed. She shuddered. This place didn't just trap people, it erased them. "We need to go," Adam repeated, tugging her arm. But something held her gaze. The windows. A second ago, they had been empty and dark. Now, figures stood inside. Lisa's breath hitched. Dozens of them. Watching. Waiting. Their faces warped and bleeding, their eyes sunken black holes. And among them, the girl. Her torn mouth hung open in a silent scream, hands pressed against the glass. Lisa stumbled backward. "They're still in there." Adam's face was pale. "And we won't be next. Come on." They turned to flee. But the forest had changed. The dirt path they'd followed up the hill was gone. In its place was an endless stretch of twisting, dead trees, their blackened branches reaching like fingers. Lisa's pulse pounded. This isn't possible. Adam spun in circles. Where the hell is the road? We just came up from there. Lisa turned back toward the house, her stomach sinking. It had moved. It wasn't where they had left it. It stood closer now. The walls, once ancient wood, now pulsed like flesh. And from within, the whispers returned, low, hungry, calling their names. Lisa's body turned cold. "We never left." Adam's breath hitched. "What?" She turned to him, heart pounding. "The house, it's playing with us." The realization sank in like ice. They hadn't escaped. They were still inside. Adam grabbed Lisa's wrist. "We have to run." "But where?" she whispered, her eyes darting between the shifting house and the endless, tangled forest. The whispers from the house grew louder, crawling beneath their skin like spiders. Voices layered on top of each other, their tones pleading, desperate. "Help us. Stay with us. Join us." Lisa pressed her hands over her ears, but the voices slipped through like poisoned air. Her head throbbed. Her body felt heavy. Then, the front door creaked open again. A single sound, low and deliberate. Adam gritted his teeth. "We're not going back inside." Lisa's voice shook. "Then why does it feel like we never left?" Adam turned, scanning for anything that looked real, solid, safe. But everything twisted and blurred, the trees bending like melting wax. Then, a light. Far through the shifting woods, a flickering glow pulsed like a beacon. A way out. A trap. It didn't matter. "It's something," Adam muttered. "Let's go." They ran. Branches snapped underfoot, the forest clawing at their arms and legs. Behind them, the house shuddered, the walls stretching as if reaching for them. The voices howled in rage. "Don't leave." Lisa ran faster, her breath burning her throat. The light was closer now. Just a few more feet. Then, the ground vanished. Lisa and Adam tumbled forward, rolling down a steep, unseen drop. Sharp roots tore at their clothes. The world spun. And then, silence. Lisa groaned, pushing herself up on shaky arms. Her head throbbed. Adam sat beside her, coughing, his face covered in dirt. What the hell was that? Lisa looked around. They were back in front of the house. Exactly where they had started. Her stomach turned. No. No, no, no. Adam's face went pale. That's impossible. Lisa clenched her fists, her breath quickening. We ran. We ran in a straight line. Adam shook his head, his eyes locked on the house. His voice was hollow. We never left. And as he spoke, the door creaked open again, inviting them back inside. Lisa's breath hitched as the open door yawned before them. The house hadn't let them go, it had just played with them. Adam clenched his fists. This isn't real. It's a trick. But the house disagreed. Inside, the hallway lengthened, stretching into unnatural darkness. A cold gust slithered from within, carrying the scent of damp wood and something rotting. Then, footsteps. Not theirs. Heavy. Slow. Coming closer. Lisa grabbed Adam's arm. We can't go in. Adam's jaw tightened, but the air shifted around them. The forest behind them melted into nothingness. The house was no longer a choice. Lisa swallowed. It's pulling us back. Adam exhaled sharply, then stepped inside. Lisa had no choice but to follow. As soon as they crossed the threshold, the door slammed shut behind them. Darkness swallowed everything. Lisa's fingers dug into Adam's sleeve. I can't see. Then, a glow. The chandelier flickered to life, but the light wasn't golden. It was red. Thick. Pulsing. Blood. Lisa gasped as the walls breathed, their surfaces coated in vein-like patterns. The air was humid, alive. Adam touched the wall, and it shuddered beneath his palm. A voice whispered from the shadows. "You've come back." Lisa spun around. The portraits on the walls had changed. The once stern faces were now horrifically distorted, eyes wide in terror, mouths stretched open in silent screams. Adam pointed at the nearest painting. His voice shook. "That's..." Lisa followed his gaze and froze. It was a portrait of herself. Only, this version of her was twisted, aged, her eyes sunken and black. Blood trickled from the corners of her mouth. And then, it blinked. Lisa stumbled back, horror choking her scream. "What is this place?" A low laugh rumbled through the house. "A home for those who stay too long." Lisa grabbed Adam's wrist. "We need to find a way out, now." But before they could move, the floorboards trembled. And then, they began to sink. The house was swallowing them whole. Lisa and Adam sank deeper into the floorboards, their screams swallowed by the house itself. Thick, pulsing wood coiled around their legs, dragging them downward. Lisa thrashed. "No! No! Adam, help!" Adam clawed at the walls, but they were alive, shifting and writhing like flesh. The house was absorbing them, pulling them into its depths. Then, a whisper. "Let go." Lisa's blood ran cold. The voice wasn't coming from the house. It was inside her head. "Let go, and you will wake up." She turned to Adam, tears streaking her face. "Do you hear that?" Adam shook his head violently. "Lisa, grab my hand. We can fight this." But she wasn't sure anymore. This had never been a house. It was a nightmare, a living entity feeding on fear. What if fighting only made them sink faster? "Let go." Lisa closed her eyes and stopped struggling. For a moment, silence. Then, a rush of wind. The walls blurred, the bloody light flickered, and suddenly, they were standing outside. The house loomed before them, silent, untouched, as if nothing had happened. Adam stumbled backward, gasping. "What? How?" Lisa's hands shook. "It let us go." Or maybe, they had let go. The front door of the house creaked open one last time. Inside, the chandelier flickered, revealing the two paintings nearest the entrance. Two new portraits. Lisa and Adam. Their faces were twisted in horror, forever frozen inside the house's collection. Adam's voice was barely a whisper. "We need to leave." They didn't look back. As they drove away, Lisa glanced in the rearview mirror. The house was gone. Not standing. Not crumbling. Just gone. And then, in the reflection, the bloodshot eyes of her painted self stared back at her.